In ancient times, salt was considered a very precious commodity, and it was traded, and having an adequate supply of salt was an essential part of life. Now, old sayings like the salt of the earth and your worth of your salt just go to remind us now how important salt has been throughout the history. So what's with all the modern-day phobias surrounding salt intake and sodium consumption? It's a paradox. How could something that was so vital to our survival in the past be considered so deadly today? Now, some of you may recall a while back that one of our fellow Toastmasters, Charlotte Edwards, actually did a speech on sodium, and she is actually my evaluator, so it's quite ironic. And she took the modern mainstream view of the topic, and she discussed the benefits of keeping your salt intake very low. And I have to say she did a great job on her speech. Of course, she's my evaluator. And she covered a lot of valid points, but some of the things that Charlotte mentioned actually raised some concern among some of the members, and we ended up having a post-meeting discussion about salt intake. So I'm going to play the devil's advocate here tonight and focus my speech on the other side of the sodium debate and explain why it's important that you consume enough sodium in your diet. You see, people who are very active, such as athletes, fitness enthusiasts, and even people who work physically demanding jobs, require more sodium than the average person, and they actually run a risk of consuming too little sodium rather than too much. In fact, some of the problems from having low sodium can be very dangerous. It can cause muscle cramps, irregular heartbeats, seizures, coma, and in severe cases, even be fatal. In fact, there have been several cases in recent years of marathon runners who have actually died because of low sodium. Now, what has happened in these cases is heavy sweating combined with high water consumption has caused the body to flush out excess amounts of sodium. And what happens in this case is then the blood sodium levels get diluted. And this is known as hyponatremia, or water intoxication, as it's more commonly known. Now, to explain this in simple terms, the body is constantly trying to achieve a balance between the sodium levels inside and outside the cells. So when blood sodium levels are low, the cells will attempt to balance things out by pulling more water into the cells, causing them to expand and swell. Now, most of the cells of the body can accommodate this swelling and expansion. However, the brain cells cannot because they're confined in the skull. So the deaths that have been associated with low sodium intake has actually been caused by the brain cells swelling due to the excess fluid being pulled into the brain. Obviously, this has only happened in extreme cases. But nonetheless, it's a serious concern for hardcore athletes. Now, even for the average person who's not as extreme with their fitness, severe health issues can arise from having inadequate sodium in your diet, and they can be just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than consuming too much sodium. Now, did you ever stop to wonder how the whole anti-sodium campaign actually began? Because the idea of salt being bad for you is something that's relatively new. Our grandparents never worried about salt consumption, and back in the days of old, salt was a highly valued commodity, and certainly wasn't considered dangerous or bad. Now, this may surprise you, but the whole anti-sodium campaign actually began as a marketing ploy to sell more processed foods under the guise of being healthier. Unfortunately, marketers care more about increasing sales of their products than they do about scientific accuracy. So as soon as the initial marketing tests showed that low sodium labels increase sales, all the major food manufacturers followed suit, and the next thing you know, the consumers believe that low to no sodium is good and that salt in general is bad. Now, people fail to see that they were being led by advertising and not actual scientific information. But despite all the anti-sodium marketing, human biochemistry hasn't changed, and our need to consume sodium and other electrolytes is just as important today as it always has been. Now, here are just a few of the many vital roles that sodium plays in maintaining your overall health. Despite popular belief that sodium causes high blood pressure, it's actually vital in the regulation of maintaining proper blood pressure. Sodium helps to maintain a proper acid-alkaline balance within the body. And this is critical because when we become too acidic, that's when things start to break down, and that's when we become sick. Sodium is vital in the production of energy and sending nerve cell signals throughout the body. Sodium helps to maintain blood sugar levels, and this is critical in the treatment of diabetics. Sodium is also a natural antihistamine, and it helps to clear up mucus and congestion within the sinuses. And sodium helps to prevent excess saliva production. And this is critical for those of you who may, sleeping on your pillow and end up drooling overnight. up, your pillow's all wet there. That could actually be a sign of low sodium in the body, the excess saliva production. Sodium is vital to maintaining strong bones. I mean, one of the major causes of osteoporosis is lack of salt and water in the body. And if none of these previous ones have caught your attention, this last one should. Sodium is vital for maintaining sexuality and libido. Like I mentioned earlier, sodium is critical for sending nerve signals throughout the body. It's also critical for strong muscle contractions, and that also includes the love muscle. So, adequate sodium intake can help you with your late-night bedroom performances. Now, obviously, there's a lot more that we could get into about the topic of salt intake. Far too much for a quick speech. But I just wanted to shed some light on the benefits of consuming an adequate sodium intake, because as I covered here, consuming too little sodium is actually more dangerous than consuming too much. But the goal, as with all things, is to achieve a balance so that your sodium intake meets your sodium needs and that you can maintain optimal levels of health and performance. Thank you very much.
Well, that certainly puts a twist on things. So I say, bring on the potato chips, bring on the french fries. Our next speaker this evening is Jill Phillips. Jill has recently become a change manager, helping to implement the electronic health records in this region. She is adjusting to full-time work again, having been off for 18 months.